All right, today we're going to be talking about linear functions and, more importantly, standard form. So we're going to identify what's a linear equation, and then we're going to put things into standard form, and I'll show you how to go ahead and do that. So two different types of problems, one identifying if it's a linear equation, and then two, putting it into standard form. All right, what is a linear equation? Linear equations only have x's and y's. They have no other variables. So if they have a z or an a or a b or something like that, that's not linear. They also have no exponents or square roots in them. And they have no variables times each other. No xy, no, or yx, I guess. Those are the only two combinations. You can't multiply them together. They all have to be pluses or minuses. Now, we can have 3x and 2y and things like that. We can have fractions. That is okay to be a linear formula. But we just can't have those times each other, all right? So standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are just numbers. So this isn't like 2x plus 3y equals 6, or 4x minus 2y equals 17. Those are just how we list a linear equation in standard form. There's another form called slope-intercept form that we're going to talk about later. Actually, I think that's next chapter we're going to talk about it. That's just the two different forms that we can have. We have standard form or the slope-intercept form. Now, this says a has to be positive, so the x value has to be positive. A and b can't be 0, so they're both, you have an x and a y is what it's saying. And it says they have to be integers, so that means that they have to go ahead and no fractions. Fractions are allowed in a linear equation, but not in standard form. So how do we deal with that? We're going to multiply everything by the common denominator if there is a fraction. That's the easiest and best way to ever get rid of a fraction. If you've got an equation with a fraction in it, multiply by the common denominator, and you multiply everything by it, and the fractions go away. You don't have to deal with fractions. Many of you don't like fractions. I understand that. So that's the easy way to get rid of them. Next, we're going to have to move the x and y to the same side. Remember to change the sign. To change sides, you need to change the sign. So if it's x over here, if it's 4x over here, and I move it to the other side, it's got to become negative 4x. And remember, by the rule, x must be positive. So if it isn't, we have to multiply everything by negative 1. So I'll do a couple of those just to show you as we go through here. So let's get going. So determine whether this is a linear equation. If so, we want to write it in standard form. So we want to do those two different things. So let's go back and take a look at what it means to be linear. Only x and y, no other variables, no exponents or square roots, and we can't multiply the x and y together. All right, so let's look at this one. Notice we have that z here. This is not a linear equation because there's a z. And we're done, because it says if so, then we write the equation. And it's definitely not linear, so why try to even put it in standard form? All right, so let's try the next one. All right, yes, we have some fractions. We have an x and a y. There's no other variable. There's no square roots or squareds, and x is not times y. So this is linear, so it's good. So that means we need to go ahead and put it in standard form. So to do that, we're going to have to put x and y on the same side, and we're also having to get rid of this fraction. So remember, to get rid of the fractions, we're going to have to multiply by the denominator. There's only one denominator here, so we're going to multiply everything by 4. So first, they went ahead and moved the y over. This is positive y, so to move it to the other side, I'm going to put negative y. Again, you can write it like this so that those will cancel. And so we have 3/4 x minus y equals 8. Now we need to get rid of that fraction. So we're going to multiply everything by 4. So we're going to multiply everything by 4. So this 3/4 times 4, 1 here times 4, and the 8 times 4. Well, 3/4 times 4 is 3. 4 times y is just 4y. And 8 times 4 is 32. And that's considered standard form. So move the x and y over, whichever one needs to be, over to the left side. And if there's any kind of fraction, multiply. And so it is a linear equation, and that's your form. And you could say that the A is 3 and the B is -4 and the C is 32. You don't have to state that. This would have been acceptable. All right, let's try another one. Y equals 4x minus 5. There's no other variable. There's no squares or square roots, and they're not times each other. So we're good. So here's the original problem. This 4x is on the wrong side, so I got to move it over. And remember, when I move it over, I got to make it negative. So I have -4x plus y equals -5. This is a positive y, so it's a plus. This -5 means it's -5, so that stays there with it. I just moving this 4x over. Now, this would be fine because there's no fractions here, but I can't have a negative x. So remember what it said, when you have a negative x, you have to, when x is negative, you have to times everything by -1. So -1 times each thing. Just like we did 4 times each of them, we have to do -1 times each of them. So -1 times -4 is +4. -1 times y is -y. And -1 times -5 is +5, which is then my answer right here. All right, look at this one. Notice this x times y in the middle here. That's not allowed. So no, because xy is not linear. What about this one? 2x plus y equals -9. There's only x and y's. There's no squares or square roots, and they're not times each other. So yes, and actually, it's already in standard form. The x and y are on one side. There's no fractions, and x is positive. So we don't have to do anything. Just say yes. And this one, again, we have that xy, so it's not linear. All right, what about this one? Oh, big fractions on this one. This one is linear. It follows all the rules. But now I have to move things over. So first I'm going to take that y over 10 and move it over. It's positive, so when I move it over, it becomes negative. Notice the order I put it in. X, then y. So x over 5 and y over 10. Negative here. Now I'm multiplying by the common denominator. Before there was only one denominator. This time I want to multiply by the common denominator. So if I have 5 and 10, what would be the common denominator between 5 and 10? It would be 10. So I multiply everything by 10. So this is really 1/5. This is 1/10. So if you want to use your calculator, 10 times 1/5 is just 2. 10 times 1/10 is just 1. And 10 times 1 is just 10. And so that's how we go ahead and make it into standard form. And if you notice, this is probably looks a lot better than this one over here in terms of how we want to use it. All right? And that's what I have for you today.